We're here with the Real Estate Gone Rogue series, really focused centrally on just winning in a more difficult market, which I think all of us can agree the last couple years has been, depending on your perspective. I'm here with two superstars from Compass, Lucas Pinto, dear friend of mine, Holland, new friend of mine, and we're just gonna kind of chop it up, talk about tactics that they've had, that they've put into practice in, a market that could perceptively be just more adverse than what we've seen historically. So let's just start out by, I would love to do an icebreaker. Let's talk about what's the most difficult thing that you feel like personally and professionally you've had to overcome in the last 24 months?
Ooh, most difficult thing I've had to overcome in the last 24 months. I think a lot of the challenges that I had to overcome are internal challenges, not external challenges, right? So you mentioned market conditions. That's a perception of that person's market conditions, right? They need to sort that out internally in order to overcome and win in that market. So to be honest, I mean, the challenges that I've had to overcome were the 6 inches in between my ears, to be honest.
That's good. I mean, I think that's not unique either to you, I think anybody that's operating at an elite level, usually most of the adversity can come internally.
Yeah. And it usually is.
Yeah.
Human beings are amazing at self-sabotaging. We just don't realize it a lot of times.
I could write a book on self-sabotage.
Yeah,
I love
sure,
it, bro.
Yeah.
Jared, what about you?
I guess kind of in the similar vein. So for me, I'm at the point in my business where I'm really trying to build the team to kind of sustain itself, I suppose. And it's adding those key employees and team members more than anything else and letting go. You know what I mean? When you're running a business and a team, you kind of want to micromanage. And recently I went to an event just with my internal team, and even they told me they want me to let go more. And I was like, all right, guys, all right, prove it. You know what I mean? And so recently, just over the last few months, I've started to do that and lean on them more, which is difficult when you're a business owner and the entrepreneur, because you want everything done perfectly. And I have to let people make mistakes so they can learn from them, even if I see it coming. So, that's probably the biggest thing that I'm kind of working on and really kind of pushing forward, right now with where I'm at.
I love it. What's a tactic that you could share for anybody watching this that is if you're anything like me, I have a bit of a hairpin trigger from a temper perspective. And so I am too a control freak. I completely understand that perspective. When you're in the moment of discovering something that is an unmet expectation, what is something that you could share that would be productive that allows you to pause and maybe not react the way your old self would want to?
Right. Physical abuse, probably. Just hit him with a bat,
You got a story about that?
I keep this bat by my desk and I just whack somebody. No, honestly, so I'm gonna tell you something that I think I'm gonna get a banner made of it and put it in my office, which is trust but verify. And I have said it so many times lately that it's starting to catch on with my whole team, the brokers, my internal team. And it's I will give as much guidance as I can, and I'll tell you, hey, look out for X, Y, and Z, and make sure you guys do this, check these boxes. And, I do remind people, and if I see that it's gonna be forgotten, then I'm gonna remind them right after that. Or I'll be like, hey, did you do this? Yeah, I know you didn't, and being able to give guidance that way. I think I'm blessed in the fact that I'm the middle of 7 kids, and I have an extremely high threshold for chaos and just BS. And so it's a blessing and a curse, because I don't really lose my temper very often. When I do, they know that they've really messed up. And so I'm able to at least give pretty solid guidance and show them the way, because I know how to do it and I've done it before. So, I think trust but verify is something that I am really ingraining kind of into my whole team.
That's a great tactic. Thank you for sharing that. I think one thing I'm really curious about is people oftentimes can really focus their gaze on where you are versus where you've been.
Yeah. Overnight success, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this happened
goes,
for you
right?
last week, right? You just started and just got there. Yeah.
One thing that I've and just to give some context, Lucas and I have been friends for a while. One thing that I have a lot of admiration about is you see a lot of professionals out there that they have a very you automatically make the assumption that because they're so successful, all these other areas of their life look as polished as their immediate occupation. One thing that I admire a lot about you and that I've noticed and observed is like, you spend a lot of your time and energy, you know, you're boxing, you're going to like these wild like SWAT training courses, like I see you consistently posting the Daily Stoic by Marcus Aurelius. Like, what led you to start to begin to prioritize that? And did you begin to put more of a focus on it, like the more successful you got? Or was that like at the infancy of the journey, were you also investing that amount of time into yourself personally during the earlier stages of your career?
Yeah, so great question. I think for most people, if you're at a stage in life where you don't have the money that you want to have, or the physique that you want to have, or the relationship that you want to have, it's because you suck at being you. And that's a harsh truth for a lot of people to swallow, but it is the truth. At one point in my life, I sucked at being me, meaning I would tell myself to do something, I wouldn't do it. I would tell myself to get up at this time, I wouldn't get up at that time. I would tell myself make that call, and I wouldn't make that call. And some people go through their whole life blaming external events, the world, instead of looking internally and be like, let me take some blame for this. I think that started it started really seriously once I got into real estate, because real estate just whooped my ass the first year. It was like, you know, this business, this industry brought me in the verge of tears. Like it was intense. It was very, very challenging to launch a successful real estate business. And I have so much respect for people who managed to do it, because I know what you had to go through at some point, or you had to go through at some point. Now, that is never ending. That journey is self-development. And if you stop that journey of self-development, watch how the progress that you've made starts to fall apart, right? So for me, real estate is one aspect, one umbrella of my self-development journey. And for my team, or for my realtors and the people that join our community, what I try to get them to understand is, you know, your business is a direct reflection of who you are. If your business sucks, dude, you suck. But the good news is you can be better. You know, you can make that decision and start building the habits to have the business that you want, to have the relationship that you want, to have the physique that you want. But there's a price that you got to pay, and that's just the reality of it, you know? So
that's good. Anything to add there?
No, I mean, that's 100% accurate. You know, the amount of time that you have to spend kind of bettering yourself, your business, focusing on kind of what's next is extremely crucial. You know, otherwise you hit these like peaks and valleys just in life and in business and everything else. So like when you reach this level and you can't get past that, you have to kind of look internally like, okay, what am I doing every single day that's getting me right here, but it's not getting me to the next level? Is it people you know? Is it what you know? Is it, you know, the circle you surround yourself with? It's just, there's a lot of aspects to it. And, you know, like I was telling you guys right before we started this, like I just went to a conference because for me, when I go to those types of events, it's not necessarily teaching me anything I don't know, but it's just opening my mind up and looking at things through maybe just a little different lens, or meeting someone that is going through the same thing that I am going through or went through in the past, and you just chat with them and you're like, you know, what are you doing to get past this hurdle? And when you're able to learn from other people who are more successful than you are, or even who just have done stuff that you can't get past, like just show me how to do it. You know what I mean? You need a blueprint. Like I'm the type of guy, like I came from a company that was a franchise, like a painting company before I got into real estate. Show me how to run a business. So I have that mentality to where like, okay, you know how to do it, just show me the way and I can do it.
Yeah,
love that.
I love that, man. That's a great contribution. Question for you guys in that same vein, and I'll start with you, Jared. Like for me at least, like adversity in my life has oftentimes shaped me into like who my present self is. And I think people are really quick to see like all of the success that both of you have had at this point in life and just assume that it was just like fell from the sky. What's something vulnerable that you could share about like when you were coming into the industry that people might not know about you, or an obstacle that you had to overcome, or something that like shows some of the sincerity of heart that was required to stick through it and stay in the business?
So I guess I'll take it all the way back to the beginning. because most people that see me now just assume I came from a real estate background. My parents did it. I was rich. I had rich friends, whatever. And when I got into this business, I literally had nothing, $0, absolutely none. Like I invested in a mentorship program to teach me how to do this, and I was broke. I put all of my money into that. And like Lucas said, my first year, I got my teeth kicked in. I didn't know anything about anything. And so, I had to literally like figure out how to navigate and work through this. And getting into this business is extremely difficult. And I just kind of had to keep pushing and figure out how to put deals together kind of on my own when I got started. And then, from there, you continue to learn more and more and more. Like every single deal I do, I learn a little bit. And most of my business are flips. I do land development, I flip houses, and then I also have a brokerage team. And so like the deals that I do, I'm taking on insane amounts of risk. You know what I mean? And everyone sees that, hey, I sell this house and I make a whole bunch of money. And that's part of the reason that like, I don't even post most of my wins, because I could brag all day long. I made 100 grand, I made 300 grand, I made whatever. More of what I post is like, I have how Jared loses money, because like people learn when you lose. You know what I mean? The biggest lessons I learn are on deals that I've done that like I learned something big on. Yeah. And so, I would say there's always stuff that you're learning and going through. And the biggest thing is just like being able to learn from those mistakes, I guess. And if you're able to do that and continue to grow and then not make those mistakes again, that's what's gonna push you further in your business. And something vulnerable that I've shared maybe once or twice is 2018, I felt invincible. So like I got into this business, went full-time 2016, 2015, something like that. And I was buying houses, flipping houses, and I was slaying it. You couldn't miss, right? And I was just like feeling invincible. And 2018 was the first market correction that I had gone through. And at the time, I had 11 houses for sale. The market slowed down dramatically. The stock market completely took a dump. Everyone lost all their money in stocks. Interest rates went up. And it was just this trifecta of like the whole market slowing down. And at that time, I had 11 houses for sale. My mortgage payments were almost $60,000 a month. Nothing was selling, and I was floating all of that by myself. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, like how long can I ride this out, And like that is extremely scary. And that type of thing, like you have to have this crazy amount of determination and grit to be able to push through that. And it was the first time I ever lost money on any deal. And finally though, I was like looking, I was like, okay, I got one more month left, and then what am I gonna do? Do I have some friends I could borrow? Like 60 grand a month is a lot, okay? Like, can I call friends? Yeah, man, like can I call my friends and have them cover this? And luckily, I stuck it out, and then houses started to sell, you know what I mean? And I lost money for the first time ever, but I learned such a massively important lesson at that point. It was like I changed my buying criteria completely, because until then I felt like I was invincible. I would buy like almost anything, And since then, my deals have become dramatically more profitable. I learned how to run my business more as a business, and it just made me much better. And now I'm able to teach my team that as well, whether it's my teammates being the agents or my contractors, basically my investing partners, everything. And so, when you go through those things in life, you can either crumble and run away, which a ton of people do. They'd be like, I'm never doing that again. Like that scared the crap out of me. I almost lost everything. Or you can be like, all right, I made it through that. Like, let's pivot and keep pushing forward. So
that's good.
Yeah, that was really good. I would love to hear you, Lucas. We were having lunch like 2 months ago, and you had a bit of a trifecta of things going on with properties that you'd owned.
Yeah.
Do you want to unpack just in a high level some of the things that had occurred and like what?
Yeah.
And then let me give a two-part question to that. Like, you have super humble beginnings. We've talked like at length about like what it was like. Did you ever, in that same vein, daydream when you were waiting tables? Immigrant parents, all the things, phenomenal story. Did you ever daydream when you were doing that like at some point you would arrive in the way that you had arrived, but also understand that like when you had arrived, that problems like a tornado and body and a rental, and like I'll let you kind of expand on that.
Yeah.
Bodies.
So
all right, I have no bodies in mind, but that's fine.
So yeah, man, it's so a few things. Number one, I'm not even close to arriving, so I have not arrived, and I think at the moment a person says I've arrived is the moment that person starts to decline. You know, like I would assume you're the same way in you as well. Once you climb that mountain, you're already looking at the next one. You know, it's like next, and it's just that part of the journey is what we fall in love with, right? Because the reality is like, you probably don't need to work anymore. You probably don't need to work anymore. I don't need to work anymore, but it's like, it's not about that anymore. There's a new why, right? So for me, like you said, I started like, my parents migrated here from Brazil. When I first came to America, I was probably 6 years old. So for me, like as I grew up here and I saw the differences of a country like this compared to a country like Brazil, by the time I got to high school, I'm like, there's really no risk in my mind, because whatever I try, worst case scenario, I'm gonna have food in the table and I'm gonna have a roof over my head because it's America. Yeah. You know, so it's like, okay, well, that's the baseline. I'll stay alive. That's different in a lot of countries. Yeah. Like in Brazil, if you take a risk and you mess up, you're out, dude. And ain't no one coming to save you. Yeah. You know, so it's kind of a different mindset. I always felt like there was somewhat of a safety net simply because of the country that we live in that a lot of people take for granted. Now, in terms of challenges and adversity, my God, where do I even get started, man? Like it's like the scenario he just described, like for 95% of people watching this, they would have a complete breakdown. Like you would have to go to the doctor and you would lose your shit.
These grays, they weren't all there back then. I'll tell you that now.
So
just a head of blonde.
So for a person to deal with that level of stress and adversity, and okay, well, let's come back to and fight through it to a solution and keep going in the same direction after you overcame the thing. It's like that. I think there's a very small percentage of people that could go through that level of stress and keep pushing. For me, I mean, dude, at any given time, the amount of bullshit I'm dealing with is just like, I mean, I got a lawsuit going on right now. I got a property in Tennessee that got hit by a tornado, roof, windows, everything gone. It's been vacant for 5 months while the contractors are doing the work. I'm fighting with the insurance company. Meanwhile, I'm floating the whole damn thing every single month. Kind of similar to yours. Another one of my properties, they found a guy, one of the tenants, they found him dead. You know, so that, like, it's just, I got a flip that's going on that I paid this contractor $220,000 and basically he's taking my money. I'm probably going to sue him. So it's just like, we could talk about the problems all day and there are plenty, but the difference is, and here's the key thing that I've missed for years. I used to watch someone who was successful and I used to ask, what did you do? He could give you the whole playbook in his business. Most people won't be able to execute his playbook. Why? Because it's not the what, it's the who. Yeah. It's the individual you've built through those mistakes, through the challenges, through the adversity, through pushing through that. Now you are a different person, and the next challenge that comes into your life, you're gonna look back, well, shit, at least I don't have a $60,000 a month bankroll. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So easy. What, 40 grand? Nah.
You know, so it's like, so your tolerance now, you become better. So that's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people miss that piece. It's not the what, it's the who. And you need to start building a better version of you, a better who. So, yeah.
Love that. Yeah. There was one question I wanted to ask both of you guys, and I think for me it was like created a lot of meaning in my life. Like, I think most young men, young women for that matter, like have not necessarily even mentors in their life, but people that they're like deeply connected to in their childhood that like they might look up to. For me, it was my grandma. I was like ride or die, best friends. The question would be, who in your life do you no longer have access to? And if you could have a conversation with them now, present day, what are like, and you were limited to like 3 things that you were able to say to them, who are they? What would you say? And then what would mean more to you coming from them than anything they could say that would like validate all of the efforts and everything that has been required of you to get to where you are now?
It was a long question.
It was a long question. It was super long.
Take notes.
I'm gonna need you to
Also,
bullet point it back.
I'll bullet point back if we need to. So I'll go Jared first. So
okay.
who would that person be that if you could have like dinner with them, you could say 3 things to him, you would,
So let's start with that. Ask me as I go through this so I don't,
deviate.
go off on a random tangent. So it's funny you asked this because I did another event years ago, and they asked something very similar. And basically, who had a big impact on your life? And I would say it probably takes me back to the first job I ever had. I was 14. I worked at a grocery store, and my boss was an ex-Navy SEAL, and he was just a straight up badass. And I was a mouthy 14-year-old, so it was great. I mean, he would actually put me in a pretzel on the ground when I would like talk shit to him, and it was just a really fun environment. And it kind of it was a boss and also like a second father to me, which was really cool. And it was just good because he was someone that gave me a lot of direction, I guess, in my life, and just a very positive influence. And what sucks is I at this event a couple years ago, they told me to even reach out to him, and I just didn't do it. So this actually is something that's pretty,
love it,
accurate, and kind of does hit home, because he's someone that I would like to just tell that, hey man, you had a pretty massive impact on my life, whether he knew it or not. He probably didn't, because he was just like a guy's guy, but a really good boss and mentor, on that side of things. So, I would definitely want to tell him that like he did have a big impact on me just through my life, and he's someone that I looked up to just because I knew what he'd been through. To be a Navy SEAL, I don't know if it's not an easy thing, right? And so then to go from that into like running a grocery store, and I grew up in a tiny, tiny town, that in itself is a difficult thing to kind of transition to. I think I would really just want to let him know that, he had a big impact just on my life as a whole. Yeah. I don't know 3 things I would tell him, but I feel like that's something I'd want to have a conversation with him about.
I think and maybe this is just me, for what it's worth, but I think people are driven a lot of times by the person that they one day hope to become. Mm-hmm. What could he say to you that would validate that forward look that you have? If you were to die tomorrow, what would you hope people would say about you at your funeral?
I think he probably would say I told you so. You know what I mean? Because when I worked at this store, I worked there when I was a kid until through high school, and then I moved away from college. I came back home and I worked there again when I was 20. And he told me, he's like, I'm going to fire you. He was like, you were not meant to be here. You need to get off this island and go start a life. You know what I mean? So that, to have a boss tell you that also, I think is really important. So he probably would be like, I told you so. So I think that, and then in terms of what someone would say about me at my funeral, oh man, I could say so many sarcastic things here. I mean, I would just, to keep it serious, I would say I'd hope that people would say that I made a really big impact on everyone that was in my life. Yeah. I'm someone that if you know me and you're part of my team or just my circle, I give pretty insane amount to people I know, because I want my whole network to kind of rise together. Yeah. You know what I mean? I want people around me to be successful and thrive and have a great life and have everything that they can. And I don't surround myself with people who are just a bump on a log. So I would say I'd love for people to be like, you know what, he accomplished that, and by being around him, everyone raised together.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the sign of a true leader. I remember growing up, we're looking out into the world, figuring out how do we achieve the things that we want to achieve. And a lot of people have this skewed perception that, because you're so well off, no, you've given more because he's so well off. Every individual that I've ever met that is far wealthier than I am, James Daynard being one of them. James is one of my mentors. This guy is slammed. He goes to one of my flips to help me out. People at a higher level are always willing to give more, and they want to pour back into their community and their people to see everyone rise up. So I love that.
So true.
I remember when I was in high school, I fucked around way too much in high school. And it was senior year, and we're getting ready to graduate. Everyone's going off to college, and I wasn't. I knew I didn't want to go to college. It didn't make sense for me, so I felt this like guilt and shame that I wasn't going to college. And there was this teacher who was also a freshman football coach, Mr. Andy Oriel. And it was one of the last few days of school, and he was a mean guy who was always very serious. And I'll never forget this. And this is the first thing I thought about when you brought this up. We're in class, he's at my desk, he comes to my desk, and I thought I was in trouble. And he puts his hand on my arm, he's like, "You're gonna be really well off someday." And that's all he said. And he walked away. And that was at a point in my life where I didn't get a lot of reassuring messages from anyone. So the fact that I did get a reassuring message, now that I look back, I'm like, man, that little message, that little interaction had such an impact on me, you know, from a person that I didn't really have that big of a relationship with. So, and I haven't talked to him since then. So, you know, if I were to reconnect with him, I would let him know how much of an impact that had on me. So.
Love that, man.
I want to touch on that because
please.
those types of things in life, you never know when they're going to happen. Like you legit, like you can be just like he's saying, like sitting there one day and just like feeling down or whatever, and someone just feels the need to say something like that to you, and it can legitimately change your life. Yeah. Especially when you're younger. There's a lot of things in my life where I like look back and like it's something really weird and insignificant, but for whatever reason that stood out. And a lot of times something like that like it lights a fire in you for whatever reason. Like this thing that you heard one time, you're like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna let this, you know, define who I am, or like this thing happened to keep this fire lit under your butt. So especially if you're trying to like figure out next steps or how to be successful or like growing your business or whatever, it's like when you can draw on just those little things that gave you motivation way back when, like those are the things that you have to lean on to be able to like stay motivated and like keep pushing forward. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but this business is not easy, okay? And like it requires serious mental toughness, and those types of memories are what can help you like kind of keep pushing forward. Yeah, 100%.
Love that. I think I'm curious, this is a little bit of a pivot. Let's say your next protege that you don't yet know was watching this session and they were feeling particularly bold, and they see it and they're like, oh man, I'm gonna freaking DM Jared, I'm gonna DM Lucas, and I'm gonna reach out. What are the top three non-negotiables for them that if they were gonna pursue you as a prospective mentor, what would they want? What would you need to see from them?
Okay, so I've mentored a lot of people, and I have this happen. So the first thing is I want them to have some sort of skin in the game. I think financially, like I have a coaching program, right? I started this little coaching program because I had so many people reach out and I couldn't grab coffee. I wanted to help, but dude, I can't grab coffee with everybody, and I can buy my own lunch, you know. So I made the thing like $3.99 a month, like. It
Super
makes,
reasonable.
yeah, you know what I mean? It's not for me, but it gets the person bought in, so they gotta have some skin in the game. So that's number one. Number two is, you know, we would review their habits and how they spend their time and set better framework for their habits, their morning routine, what they do day in, day out. And then lastly, I want to see them show up. Like if there's a realtor on my team and I'm in the office 5 days a week and I don't see you, that's a problem, dude. We got a problem, you know? So yeah,
Love
those
that.
are the three things.
Love that.
Yeah.
What
Come
about you,
back to
Jared?
the office. Stay at work. Don't stay woke.
I would say the biggest thing, and these are probably pretty similar items too, be ready to take massive action, because you can't just dabble in this business.
Yeah.
You can't like work 1 day a week and expect big things to change. Like you have to be ready to go 100% in and like dedicate all of your energy to this. You can't have a side job. You can't like think that you're just gonna do this part-time. So like be ready to take massive action, and kind of in that same vein, be ready to put the time in, right? Because I think that's super important. Another thing I would say is probably come in with like no ego. Because if you're trying to come in and you want to learn from me, I'm pretty sure I know a little bit more than you, right? Like I'm actually extremely open to feedback and extremely open to collaborating and whatever else. But if you're gonna argue with me on everything, that's not gonna work. It's just not, you know what I mean? So like you gotta have a very open mind. And then let's see, the third thing, you have to have the why. You have to have the why. Because if it's someone who's gonna be my protege, oh, you got some big shoes to fill, my friend, because I do not mess around, and I push myself extremely hard, and I was able to find my why early on when I got into real estate. Like I had to kind of figure out, like, why am I gonna do this? Why am I gonna work so hard? If you don't have a freaking burning reason and desire of why you wanna be successful, whether it's your family, whether it's, you know what I mean, building this life that you want to see, whether it's supporting your parents or whatever, right? Or building, for me, it's building a legacy, because similar to Lucas, I came from very, very humble beginnings, and I wanted to like break the mold of my entire family. Like I'm going to completely change the lineage. So like if you don't have that why, don't even try, because you have to have a reason that gets you up at 5 a.m. or gets in a cold plunge every day to freeze your ass off because you know it's good for you, or, you know, does these things that 99% of the population will not do because they're comfortable, and you got to be ready to be extremely uncomfortable too, right? And so if you don't have the why, then it's just, you're not there. You can't be successful at a high level without having that.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that. I would say that's probably the most important component, is the why for a lot of people. The realtors, or realtors, lenders, the people that I've seen come in this industry that are successful, that have a why, and it's strong. And sometimes that why, piggyback off Patrick Beck-David, sometimes that why is an enemy. Sometimes you have to pinpoint an enemy. You got to prove somebody wrong, right? And that why sometimes changes throughout your career, right? At the times where I felt unmotivated with my business, or like I lost that spark, is because I accomplished one of my whys, and then I didn't take time to reset. You know, so that's key. Yeah.
What do you think, tactically speaking? Let's say there's somebody watching this, has achieved maybe some level of success, the market's beaten them up over the last couple of years, like they're looking to re-engage, but what would be your number one tactic to get out of maybe a place or a mental state of professional depression, if you will?
So I think the first thing I would do is I would push back, as silly as it sounds, but the majority of people that I talk to is like, okay, first thing I ask them is, what time do you get up? Oh, 7:30, 8 a.m. I'm like, okay, you want a few extra work weeks every month? Get up earlier, dude. Do more. So I think a person, this is, for me and my team, this is critical. Having a morning process that you set yourself up for success is more powerful than people give credit to. How you start your day and the mental frame and the energy that you bring into your work day will determine what type of day you have. So the biggest piece of advice that I would give to people is, if you're stagnant at your job, in your real estate career or in your lending career, get up at 4:30 in the morning tomorrow. Get the hardest fucking workout you've ever done. Be in the office an hour earlier and do 50% more of what you did the day before. See how you feel at the end of the day. Forget about the results. Just see how when you lay down at night, just see how you feel. If you feel better or if you feel worse, you're gonna feel accomplished, and you're gonna feel good, and you're gonna start to have a little glimpse of hope. And then you do that again the next day, and the next day, and then boom, before you know it, you start to see some results. And that's the reality of things, man. It's just, I think the way the world is right now, not just the real estate industry, people are operating out of fear. You know, people are terrified, dude. And at any given moment, you know, you're either operating out of fear or you're operating out of faith. I choose to operate out of faith. You know, so it's all gas, no brakes.
Love it. Let's go.
man.
I'm ready to run through a wall.
Yeah.
Jared, what about you?
I agree totally. I mean, I'm up at 5, you know what I mean? Like, and if you look at how many people are successful at a very high level, they don't start their day at 8, 9 o'clock. No, they're up before the sun, for sure. So I totally agree on that. And then in terms of like, this business is very emotionally draining because I compare real estate to the most intense roller coaster ride of emotions you can ever be on.
Yeah.
Because especially when you get started, because you get these deals to where you're gonna make 50 grand and then it falls apart, and then you're gonna make 25 and then that falls apart, and then you make 100 grand and then you don't make anything for 6 months. You know what I mean? So it is really difficult to stay motivated. And outside of really good habits like he's talking about, you know, I think something else that's really helpful is, you know, celebrating the wins that you have through the process. Because like in our business, we're commission based. So it's like your win is when you get paid, right? But if you're grinding every single day and maybe you made 20, 30 calls or whatever, or you set a seller appointment and you crush a seller appointment, but you didn't get the listing or whatever, you should still celebrate those because it's still moving the needle and you're going in the right direction. And so being able to kind of track that stuff and be happy when you do that is gonna help just your mental stability. Because like I have people on my team, and I have over the years, like talked to people that like are just extremely depressed because they're like, I haven't gotten a deal done. Like, what am I doing wrong? Nothing's coming together. And I'm like, okay, well, let's take a step back, okay? In the last 2 days, you called 50 people, you talked to like 6 people in your sphere, you had 2 appointments, a new buyer consultation, and a listing appointment. So you did a lot, right? And all of those went well, but you haven't gotten anything to connect yet. And if you get in your mind and you're depressed and you think it's not gonna come together, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
You just sit there and you're like, right before this, someone on my team analyzing a deal that we got off market, and he was going there to make an offer for me, and he's like, oh, this is too low. They're not gonna take it. They're just not gonna take it. I'm like, you're setting yourself up for that. Like, stop saying they're not gonna take it. Like, if you come into an appointment to where you say, okay, this seller, they're not gonna list with me. They're just not. They're not gonna. I can't charge full price. No one charges full price. You know who charges full price? This guy, because I know my value, okay? And so like, if you have that mindset, that's what you're gonna create. So if you have a winner's mindset and you have good discipline and you just celebrate these little wins as you go through your day to day, you can look back on a week and be like, okay, I may not have got a deal done, but I crushed this week. And that's the type of stuff that's gonna keep you motivated. Right. And the people that are doing a lot of business, you think they sit there depressed as hell when they don't get a listing? No, they're like, on to the next, whatever, you know what, behind me. And, you know, I think just that mental stability is huge.
Yeah. Now, let's say both of you guys lost your businesses and your net worth overnight, right? What's the first pillar of business you would attack?
I won't do it.
Bro. I ain't doing that shit again. I'm out.
I'm not doing real estate. Who needs this business? I don't know.
I'm gonna go back to bartending and just chill.
I saw this homeless guy. He had room in his tent on the corner. So, like, you know, he had an extra push cart. Yeah, we'll be fine.
So if I had to restart over, what pillar?
First
of my
pillar.
Business? Dude, actually, I would do something different than when you're new, I spun my wheels a lot. Yeah. You know, I had some mentors, but I didn't have some, like the way I mentor the people on my team, I grab them by the hand and I say, hey, shut up, do this. Yeah. And I'm like very intense, you know, because I know they're gonna go down this road and try a bunch of things and they're gonna lose 6 to 12 months. So long story short, if I were to restart, the way I would restart my business today is I would pick a neighborhood and I would knock on all those doors. And I would say, hi, my name is Lucas. I'm a local realtor here. I have an investor that wants to buy your house. Would you be interested in receiving a cash offer? No? Great. Thank you. Have a great day. Next house.
Love it.
So that I would just walk the streets, knocking doors, and I would do a ton of deals that way.
Love it. Love that.
Yeah. Similar to what he's saying, I would say one thing that I tell people all the time when they're just getting started or they can't figure out like how to get traction is like, you gotta have laser focus on one thing that you're gonna do. Until you're at a point to where you're really successful and you can kind of spread out in terms of what types of marketing you're doing or deals you're doing, you gotta focus on one single thing. Like when I got started in real estate, like I worked as like a buyer's agent on a few transactions, and then I shifted to investing. And then buyers didn't even look at them, not even remotely in my like view. And so, you know, if I were to get started again, it'd be similar to him. Like my business was investing, right? And so like that's what I focus on. And so that's what I would target. I would start targeting properties, investment properties, and I would pick what form of marketing I would do, whether it's knocking doors or direct mail or, you know, cold calling or whatever it may be. You pick that one thing and you go hard. Like you go everything you freaking have into it. You don't dabble and you don't knock a few doors or I made 10 calls today. I mean, I sent out 5 handwritten letters and no one's called me. It's like, no, you send out 500, okay? Every day you sit there. I did that when I first started. Again, I was broke. Let's remind everyone I was broke. And I calculated how much it cost to print out one letter, how much the ink was, how much the paper was, how much the stamp was, and I hand wrote letters. And that's how I got my first deals. And it was, what was it, 50, stamps were a little cheaper back then. It was like, I think it was like 68 cents per letter or something, maybe 50 something, I can't remember. And that's how I started getting deals, because I hand wrote these letters. I got lists and I targeted that. So having laser focus on one thing and not chasing shiny objects. If you turn up a deal that, like, true story, a commercial deal, and I chased it because that was the first deal I ever got under contract, and it wasted 3 months of my life. And I was like, okay, that was cool. If I focused on residential, then I probably would have made some money. So laser focus and don't chase the shiny objects.
Love that. I obviously both of you guys, like, I think for me, like, people that operate at an elite level, like, that you can usually isolate like a superpower of some sort. From my experience, at least, like when, like, everybody I think has like one innate thing about them that makes them like have the opportunity to like really crush life. If you guys had to isolate, or like people around you were to probably assume what your superpower would be, what do you think it is, like, in business? And then, like, what did the journey to discovery look like for you to find that and then like really harness it? Jared, we'll start with you.
I would say mine is being able to thrive in chaos.
Okay.
You know, being able to keep my cool and manage a lot of things going on around me. Again, being the middle of 7 kids, there was never a dull moment. So I just, at a young age, I was always going. I'm not someone who sits on the couch and watches TV and just hangs out. Like, being able to manage a million things being thrown at me all the time is my superpower. I have a lot of different companies and a lot of different things I do, and I manage a ungodly amount of projects at once and contractors. So being able to manage a lot of things and keep your cool and not lose my shit when something crazy bad happens, that's a superpower, because there's a lot of people, when you get bad news, it will ruin your day. You'll go sit in the corner and you'll cry. And when you have too much stuff going on, you have to compartmentalize that and just sit that over here. I will deal with that later. And I have to deal with X, Y, and Z to keep everything moving forward. So.
Do you feel like that was an innate ability that you've always had, or do you feel like it was learned behavior through maybe being the middle child of 7-kid family?
Yeah.
Like, was it over time you just built that muscle?
Yeah, 100%. And I continue to build it. Like, the amount of stress and, you know, things that I can handle continues to grow, and the dollars grow and the problems grow.
Yeah.
You know, like, when I first got started, I didn't think I would be doing 3 or 4 flips at a time. On average, I'm like 20 to 25 right now, all at once. And so, like, if you told me that 8 years ago, I'd be like, no, there's no way. Like, I don't even know what to do, right? But when you're able to keep pushing and growing that skill, whatever it is, like, some people just absolutely slay it maybe on generating leads. And if you can do that, then you surround yourself with a team who can then close them. Or if you're a closer, then you put yourself on a team who can generate leads, right? Or if you can manage contractors or whatever it is, like, whatever your superpower is, you then have to surround yourself with other people who can help you excel in that. And if it really is your superpower, the more you work that out, just like your muscles, the stronger it's gonna be, and the more you're gonna be able to continue to grow.
Love that.
That's
Thank you.
That's good.
Luke?
I would say my superpower is I think I could outlast most people. I'm like a hedgehog, dude. I just go and I go and I go. And I've watched throughout the years people come in and out of the industry, or they come in, they hit it hard for a while and they leave. I have no problem going through a period of setbacks, and I know that I won't quit. I'll just outlast. So a winner is just someone who lost a bunch of times and never gave up. That's all it is. So I know that I'm not going to give up. So the only option is to win then. So
love that.
Best line yet. That was it's a fact though.
It is. It's true. If I gave you guys each $100 million and you had 3 weeks to deploy the capital, what would you do?
Oh man, invest in real estate. Are you kidding me? That's what I do. Like, come on. I would cash out all my hard money loans. I'd become my own lender. I would, immediately start looking for the deals that I've been too scared to jump into.
Love it.
If you have that much money, man, money is the hardest part in this business to, have it available to be able to make that move. It is the gas, but then you also have to feel super comfortable to do it. So with that amount of money, you can change your life. The first time I made $100,000, I changed my life.
Yeah.
So like $100 million can set you up for all of your lineage's life if you do it right. So align with the right people is extremely crucial, right? If you make $100 million and you just go buy a bunch of cars and a few houses, then you fucked up, right? You need to align with people who know how to use that money to make more money and make smart investments. So, that's what I would do. I would immediately reach out to people that are doing what I want to do and say, hey, look, let's start partnering on deals, or how can I add value to you? And then, like I said, I would refine all of my business and I would become my own bank. And then I would then be my whole team's bank, right? And you use that money to make more money.
Yeah, love it.
That's good. 100 mil. So kind of piggybacking off what he said earlier, when you're starting out, I think single focus on an area is the way to go. When you have 100 mil, you have to diversify. Yeah. Now you're not going to put the whole 100 mil into real estate, or you might, but different sectors within real estate. So you have to diversify to some extent. But really, I think the first thing I would do before I even invest those dollars, I would spend some money to find someone who has $1 billion that could mentor
Let's go, bro.
or half $1 billion.
There it is.
And I would reach out to that person and I'd be like, hey, I just got my first 100 mil. You got a bill. What do I do?
Yeah.
Because
Scrooge McDuck, man, I turn that into gold coins and dive into it and like swim around for a while.
Yeah. So I would find a mentor who has been there, done that, so he could guide me through. Because you better become a 100 millionaire real quick, otherwise you're going to lose that money. Because you're not prepared for the. I have a buddy, you actually know him. He got an inheritance, became a millionaire overnight. I said, bro, if you don't learn how to become a millionaire real quick, that money's going to be gone. Because you don't have those habits, you don't have those tools yet. You better get them. So I would find a mentor. Love that.
Second question would be, if a client came to you and they had $1 million to deploy right now, what specifically would you tell them to do on a tactical deal basis for both of you?
I would say first question is like, what's their goal with that money? Is it to just purely like make more active income? Because there's a lot of ways that you can put that to work, right? If there's someone that is more comfortable just kind of sitting it and just growing it over time, then you can look at just different real estate opportunities and you can leverage a handful of properties. I've had someone come to me and say this same thing, right? But in their specific situation is like they inherited the money and they didn't have the chops to want to do any kind of more active types of investing. Right? If someone came to me and they're like, Jared, I have $1 million. Can you just make it more? I would be like, okay, let's start investing in some active income, which are going to be flips, or you find other people that you can invest with. Like I personally have several investors that they invest that much and more with me and they make fantastic returns. So I would for sure diversify it, right? So you can take maybe 20% of that and you can look for some investment properties that would be more passive income, right? So you can get something where it's coming in. And I would also look for something that would probably be more of an equity growth play also. Find a property somewhere that you could buy, do some value add, and then you could do the burst strategy, which most people know about now, right? And then you can use the other half of that to do more active investing, right? Whether it's extremely passive with someone like me to where you lend me the money and I give you a return and you don't do a single thing. Or if you build your own team, then you can do your own flips. There's a lot more risk in that, right? So you really need to be careful, but you want to spread that money out between a few different things, because if you put it all in one bucket, if it's passive, it's just going to be sitting there. It's not very much fun, right? Yeah. And if you put it all in flips and you blow it, you might lose it all. Yeah. So you really need to, spread it across a few areas.
Love it.
Yeah, I agree with them. I think there's several more questions that I would have for that person. Their age, their risk tolerance, did they want to be passive or they're willing to be active? What I would recommend just about for anybody, I tell all my friends now, I'm like, dude, take 2 to 3% of your net worth and put it in Bitcoin. I'm a big fan of crypto. And I think for a small percentage, if I'm wrong, you lose 1, 2, 3% of your money, and forgive me, but if I'm right, that's gonna be your best performing asset class in the next 10 years. Just like it was the best performing asset class in the last decade. Yeah. So I think it depends from person to person. There's no one investment vehicle that's right for everybody. There's so many different layers, but someone who is an investor understands all the different buckets and could advise somebody, hey, maybe you should go this direction, right? So, yeah.
Love it. Last question for you studs. Thank you guys for being so nimble on your feet with great answers.
He's gonna have a tough one now. I can tell he's setting us up for something here.
When is the last time? Well, what's the most recent time? And what was the room that you were in that you felt like an imposter?
That's a good question. Like in a good way or a bad way?
Like in a way where it's a feeling that I think all of us have felt in our industry at some point in time, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that it's a feeling that you feel depending on the ecosystem you find yourself in. And so obviously you're in a new height of success at this point in your life. Now, putting yourself in another room where maybe there's people that are so significantly more successful than you are currently, what did that look like? And how do you qualify yourself being in that room so that it doesn't push you down?
So I have something.
Yeah, please.
About 1.5 years, 2 years ago, I joined a group called Black Card. This is a group by Bridger Pennington, and basically it's a group for fund managers. So I inspired to start my own fund. We launched a fund. It's a 506c LK Capital. Long story short, 2 years ago, I was in a room for a small conference, and it was my first time interacting with this group. And to be part of this group is $35,000 a year just to join. So it's, and I'm sitting in this table and I'm meeting the guys on the table. Everyone that I met got their business cards, we connected, and I'm listening to their conversations. Most of these guys flew there private. And then I look at their business cards and I do a Google search and I'm like, oh my God, this guy manages $250 million fund and he's sitting right there. Yeah. But that's the difference. I think I this time around I was mature enough to know that I wasn't ashamed or embarrassed. Whereas when I was starting my real estate career, I would have been. Yeah. This time around, I just, I'm happy to acknowledge, dude, super inspiring what you've done. I would love to inspire to be like you, and there's no, I think when people are starting out, most people, someone who's made it, they know when you're bullshitting, dude. Yeah. So it's there's nothing wrong with you being brand new and just acknowledging that. Hey, listen, I'm brand new. I want to do what you're doing. Can you show me? I think the ability to humble yourself to someone who has accomplished something that you're looking to accomplish. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of people have a hard time doing that. Yeah. I think a lot of people try to fake it till they make it, so to speak. Yeah. I don't think that's the best strategy.
Love that.
So.
Mm-hmm. I'll kind of piggyback on that. I agree, and I think that is really important. It's been a while since I've been in a situation like that, probably at the beginning of my career, to where I was in a room with a lot of people who were very successful, and it's just you do have to be humble and also be open to telling people kind of, I guess, where you're at and where you want to go. Because for me, it was funny. I used to network so much when I first got into it, and I did fake it till I make it, but I at least knew enough to where I could have competent conversations with people. And I had a guy be like, man, are you trying to run for mayor right now? Yeah. Because I was just working it, man. I was just I knew what I needed to do, and I wasn't afraid to just get out of my shell, which is really difficult, especially if you're in a room with people who are just like 10x where you're at.
Yeah.
You know, so it's been a while since I've been there, which on that note is an issue for me, right? Because you need to put yourself in those rooms. That's the only way you're going to really be able to grow to a next, very high level. And so, I need to do that. I want to be in another room like that. So if you're not putting yourself in those positions, then you are going to end up kind of hitting these kind of plateaus in your career. So thank you for reminding me. I need to go sit with some billionaires.
Love that. Love that. I think first and foremost, thank you both for being so candid and willing to share. And I think that the greater audience, I think there's a lot of people that just statistically speaking probably haven't reached the heights that both of you guys have reached. And so creating a platform where they can see more of the sincerity and the journey. And this is a personal belief I have, but I think anybody that's had a really hard time in the market that we're in or the market that it's been based on the way it's been, for me, I think authenticity is the new invincibility. And so being able to give you guys the opportunity to kind of tell your story, if anybody's looking for the next best step, what can I do? Just taking a look in the mirror and saying, who am I right now? And how do I grow from where I am right now? If you're gonna take a tactic, that's a decent one to take. Yeah. So thank you guys, I appreciate your time. You guys are just mavericks. So hopefully we get to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks
Sweet.
for having us.
Yeah.